Simon?
The synopsis.
That's an easy way out.
I've seen his organised system. You'll be most proud of his notebook. He's got all your notes all nicely set up.
I really love talking about notes when I think back, because we didn't get any notes, poor us, nothing. And so I used to go home at the end of the day and write out the ATMs, basically, in the first years. And you can see when I've done it, and then it's like there's days where there's just nothing. And then I've sort of come back to it again. And I must be really honest and say I don't go back to them very often, but I know it was invaluable writing them down just to recall something, just to bring it to another level. So anyone else? Okay, so let's do this. Ray, seeing you haven't been here, maybe they could all come up with just one thing that they've thought was interesting over the last days. Simon's got something?
We've been doing a lot of work.
They should be.
We've been doing a lot of work with our shoulder blades. Well, with the parts of our bodies which interact with the shoulder blades. And it's been a really kind of wonderful and liberating enterprise, feeling it's a slightly uncommon, for me at least, sensation of having the shoulder blades kind of on the floor and everything else swimming around on top, and just feeling the extent to which there is movement there across the back of the rib cage, and just getting these amazing little massages for all those muscle groups is just kind of, we're doing little pelvic clocks, but on the upper thoracic, and it's been well, I guess that's kind of been a theme throughout the week. Culminating indeed actually slowing it down, Ray, like -8 on the pitch control.
Anything? Yeah, go.
I was going to say something similar, but just the relationship between the first rib, which we were feeling on each other, and the pelvis as well. And I never knew anything about the first rib. I just thought that the only thing it was good for was for poking people when they were unconscious in bed and didn't want to participate in physio. Poking. So now I know that there's actually, a lot of movement there, and how important it is, and how that relationship between what goes on at the top and what goes on in your pelvis as well. So you thought I was nice. And the other thing was the pelvis as well, just the difference between rolling the pelvis and lifting the pelvis. And I didn't really realise there was a difference with that either, but that's been really interesting to feel.
Anyone else? Yeah, Leonie.
And I also found that interesting about the rolling and the lifting. I wasn't aware of that, but also how you hold something. So we were looking at bone contact and also light touch. So sometimes this sort of contact would give you a different experience, and the person on the table a different experience than holding it more with the palm of your hand, which will give more of a bone contact, and you can feel the person or their skeleton on the table.
Yeah. Margaret.
You'd like the fact that we practiced with a squishy cup, right? No, it's not a squishy cup. I mixed them up, bugger. A squishy bottle, and that's the round hold, and then the actual holding a cup, a coffee cup. So don't practice on anyone's body until you've walked around the room with a cup and stood up and sit down with a cup so that you can actually find your bones, which is awesome, really, because your handhold affects, even thinking about that, affects the way that my body moves. The feedback comes in fast. Here's Simon again. You want to catch?
With regard to this, is just a personal question, but I've noticed that I tend to hold things with my fingertips all the time, no matter how heavy it is, even if it's a bottle of wine or a litre bottle of water or whatever, even to the extent that I've seen photos of me in nightclubs and things holding a beer with my fingertips, and it looks really strange. And people have kind of gone, oh, yeah, you hold things, you use your hands in a strange way. So can you just therapize me on just briefly, like what's going on there, and should I change it?
But you can really see, you know, if you don't mind saying this, so you can see Simon when he holds that, this isn't really giving him a lot of support through his bones in his torso. No? So if you did hold it with, and now move up and down with your, there. Can you feel something for you wakes up in the middle? That when you're holding it with you,
Is this why teachers take a coffee cup into the room?
Probably to, you know, for many reasons I think you could take a coffee cup into the room. But yeah, it's something that I would really encourage you to play with. Really encourage you to. Yeah, thanks to why you like that.
I don't know.
There's something he's still discovering. And that's the process for us all. There's something you're still discovering. There's levels of organisation. And not to just think it's, you know, because it's what does the skeleton give us? Yes, it does the anti-gravity function, but what does it allow us? What's the image of my head? Okay, because it's the big picture stuff. So if I'm here and I drop a little bit like Simon is at the moment, so can you all do that? Just give to the ground a little bit. Which would be more, can you feel that? No? So if you're here, what's your image, your 3D image of your head? What directions could your head move in easily? And how much, if you were going to look, how easy would it be for your head to take your eyes where you want to go? How much connection would there be through to your pelvis? No? If you find that cup, no, this is your anti-gravity response. What's happened to how you are in the world? What's opened up in the space around you? And then if you lose your skeleton a little bit again, what spaces have you got around you in the world? Most of you will have forward. No? When you, can you feel, most of you will sort of have forward and down. Yeah, limited peripheral, you know, and you've got to move your head quite a lot because you haven't got great peripheral vision at the moment.
You have to work really hard in yourself to actually find that.
Yeah, and you're not ready to move through space, really. Huh? If you find your skeleton again, what's happened to the world around you? What's opened up?
You've got rotation in underneath.
You've got rotation, absolutely. How easy is it to begin to look up? And how much freer are your eyes and your head and your ears to orient you in different directions so that any sound coming in, or something in your peripheral vision that comes in, you're ready immediately to engage with it. So which one would be better for survival?
This one.
Survival. And, you know, you've got to keep remembering Feldenkrais was absolutely about survival. Because of his life, because of what he went through, this was absolutely paramount.
But he didn't stop there.
No, he didn't stop there. But you had to be ready to act in the world. Feldenkrais is not just about, you know, I can be here, but I have to be able to go. It's not, that's the difference in this methodology to anything that I think else there is, this ability to take our intention into action. And why he would talk about in terms of learning that, you know, if you, he talks about, I think it's in The Potent Self, I'm pretty sure it is. He talks about one end of learning is where you're incredibly suggestible, which is when you would be in trance or in a hypnotic state. So there he says it's wonderful because you're really suggestible, but you can't move. So how easy is it to take that then into acting in the world? The other is in when you're in a high emotional tone, you're either really threatened or, and there the learning won't be, because the high emotional tone is the thing that's taking all your attention. So learning's got to be in this space where you've got these abilities to act in the world. Because I think, Di, you can correct me here, I think all learning in any domain now is, learning is always about changing your actions in the world. Would be the definition in schools, in education generally. Yeah? If it doesn't change your actions in the world, nothing's happened. It's just what Feldenkrais would call cerebration. It's just all this, but nothing's actually changed. So, you know, and we all know how we get into that place ourselves when, oh, I should do this, I should do this, I should do this. But does it change our actions in the world? And is that got something to do about our organisation when we're doing that cerebration? So if I'm here doing that cerebration, oh, look, I really should be getting up and, you know, this is my procrastination. I go so far back when I'm procrastinating. I just can't go forward if I tried. You know, I really don't want to go and make that phone call. And from this place, I can't act in the world. So no wonder I can't go and make the phone call that I don't want to make. I'm fulfilling, well, maybe I am achieving my intention, but not if there's a part of me that's going, but I would like to be able to do that. Whereas if I'm here, is it easier for me to go and act on that intention? Or maybe from here I can choose, well, no, I really don't want to make that phone call at the moment. I choose not to make that phone call. But that's a choice then, because I've actually got options. I don't have a choice here. And that's why he's so into, you know, one option, no. 2, yes or no. It's okay, but you want at least 3. And the thing for us to understand is, what's that got to do with me having options in how I can move in the world? That you can't separate the two. They're absolutely linked together. And that, to me, is the real depth of the Feldenkrais method, of really understanding that our organisation shows us how we get stuck, shows us how we get in our way. So that's the sort of big picture. So this anti-gravity response, yes, it's beautiful that our skeleton's lined up and it feels effortless and we don't feel resistant, but it's what that does to how we can act in the world that's even more important. That's the important part. Okay. So I was just going to bring up a couple of little things that I just thought you might, which is leave that big picture stuff. So one of the things, you know, because you were talking so beautifully about making circles around the ground, you know, that ability to shift our weight, and especially in the one that Lisa was doing with you, you know, where you had to, and you could feel something had to soften. And I'm sure many of you could feel that there were parts that weren't going to soften, that they just, some of those ribs still felt like concrete bars maybe. For some of you, that it was like, oh, well, I'm doing everything I can, you know. So one of the really great things to do and to understand when you're working with people is the difference. Just as you discovered the difference in contact through your hand changes your organisation, the difference, if people are having trouble softening, what surface would be better for them to be lying on? Padding, absolutely.
And stuff under the knees.
Yeah.
So that's what we
Mm. Mm. Yeah. This ability to pad something. One of my clients who's just absolutely gorgeous, and I might have spoken to you about her before, and she's one of the most inspiring people. But some of my clients are some of the most inspiring people I can honestly say I've met in my life. And to me, it's one of the beauties of the work to be given the chance to work with some of these people. Anyway, she's very, very, very stiff. She's, because of a genetic issue she's got. And in the end, you know, we'd do things and she'd always say, oh, Julie, the table's so hard. My table is not hard, you know, and we'd have things. One day she came in and I sort of felt a bit thing, but she brought in this whole little eggshell foam bit that just fitted her head and her torso. It made all the difference in the world. I cannot tell you the difference it made for her to be able to soften into the ground rather than always feeling this hard contact. And from that I learnt, I can remember the first time I went up to China with Graham. Oh my God, they have hard beds in China.
Yes, they do. And in Nepal.
Yeah, that's quite, anyway, quite a few countries around the world. And you know, I was sort of coping, and in the end, it was sort of like, oh, I was saying to her, I've got the worst headache. This was after about 5 days. And, you know, trying to find towels and my clothes and everything. I'm just going, oh, my head just feels like it wants, and I don't get headaches really, you know. And I realised my ribs were so tight because they couldn't, not my ribs, I couldn't adapt to these hard surfaces. So this hard surface was just making me tighter and tighter and tighter. So now when I go to China, I take up this little eggshell. It's brilliant, don't have any problems. It's light, takes up room in my case, but I don't care. But it's the same with a lot of people. So what I'm saying is there's a lot of my clients who, when they can't soften, do you know what I mean? I will always say to them, please do the movements I give you on your bed. Don't get on the floor, get on your bed. We want the softness, we want that you can begin to give to the ground instead of holding yourself up from the ground all the time. And there's other people you want them to have the opposite. You know, you'd give them a harder surface to maybe try and stimulate this lift, because you can imagine, if we're talking about the difference between the pelvic lift and the pelvic roll, how easy would it be to get pelvic lift on a really soft surface? And no, there's just not a lot to help give it to you. No? So it's really realising the nature of the surface, the ground, just like you found with the cup, this ground has a profound impact on what it's feeding into our systems.
I find it very hard doing an ATM in bed.
Because you fall asleep?
But I don't get enough sleep.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And, you know, just to realise that it depends what you're trying to evoke with the person. Are you trying to get them to give to the ground? Are you trying to give them lift from the ground? So just to realise this, and I think he spoke a little bit about it in the On Learning chapter, this ability that we've got to remember that everything feeding in through our senses is going to have an absolute impact on how we organise ourselves. People who have, sorry, wait.
Would you say people who have no bones in their image, they would need the floor?
People, what do you think? People who have no bones in their image, who are more fleshy.
Imagine you are.
What would you want them to be heading toward? You want them to feel more, you want harder surface. Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, it's really beautiful. I don't think I mentioned this the other day. Hava Shalav, who, I can't remember what she calls her program. Child Space. Anyway, it's really beautiful, and I do this with lots of my parents, lots of the parents I see, of the kids I see, and she really understands the importance of ground. So the difference going, this is more with, I'm doing squishy bottle at the moment. This is you. This is you. This is you. This is you. Can you imagine doing that if you did it on yourself with squishy bottle? This is you. This is you. This is you. This is you. Because so many of these children don't get to move around in space. They don't get all of this feedback coming in through all of these different parts of themselves. Absolutely. This is all the rolling. This is you. This is you. This is you. This is you. And it's such a lovely thing for parents to be able to do as well. And, you know, that this, and I love that she says, this is you. This is you. This is you. This is you. And then the next thing she does is she keeps giving ground. Yeah? So that would be, this is the ground. This is the ground. So you're going through, even if it's a bit fleshy, you're going, there's the ground. There's the ground. There's the ground. If I'm lying down, there's the ground. There's the ground. Huh? And profound. The different, because you're feeding in normal sensation. And that was always the thing I first remember Feldenkrais saying when all those Amherst videos, when he's working with all those people, mainly with neurological disabilities, because he felt he could help them more than most people could. This idea that you're trying to give them all you're doing is feeding in normal feedback, normal sensation. Let their system do the work. If you can feed in normal sensation, their nervous systems, they're smart, they will know what to do. That really transformed my work, to think of it that way. Just normal sensation.
I just want to add this for some people that my youngest son, who doesn't walk really very well, and we've never used a wheelchair or anything, he's always been on the floor. And we use a stroller, which is quite hard. And recently we trialled a wheelchair, and it was one of these Fandangle has everything, tilt back, all that sort of stuff, which I didn't want to try, but anyway, we did. And it had quite a bit of cushioning, you know, that to keep them comfortable.
Yes.
And I promised the physio I would try it more than just one trip down the hall. So this one morning I put him in it from bed and moved him around, did all our breakfast stuff with him in it. And I said to the physio, what I noticed was I have a son normally who sits on a little wooden seat, who's busy like this, and looking and moving, to this kid who just went boom and slumped and hardly moved. It was so noticeable. Yeah, so.
Yes.
Makes huge difference, you know. And again, this is going back a long time, but I can remember, you know, when I first graduated, and this girl who was in a electric wheelchair, and boy, it took a bit too, because they wanted to keep making the seating. So again, you get a chair and then they absolutely mould really the supports, and they just wanted to keep her in one place, to keep her upright. But then her pelvis couldn't move. So we'd been doing all of this work, which in her old wheelchair, she couldn't move a lot, but believe me, the difference it makes just to be able to do this, just to be able to do that, to shift your weight just a fraction, to feel it through you, you know, to get your head control, and especially in transfers, helping with transfers, and they just put her into position, boom, and I mean, they were great. When we went, and, you know, and the OT was wonderful because she said, oh, yeah, I can really see. So they changed it. But it's a really big thing with people who are in wheelchairs, and for all of us who sit all day in chairs as well, to really look at what are we sitting on and how we need variety.
And drove the wheelchair like that, and I got him to sit upright. He couldn't drive anymore.
Absolutely.
We had to go back to this. It was impossible.
Yeah, you've got to go with what they understand and enlarge it from there. Not our idea of what they should be, people should be able to do. You go with what they do well, and you expand it. That's what we do. Find what they're already competent at doing. There's already pathways in their brain. You've already got all of that information that they... Sorry, Di, I'm just going to... What did they say in the paper today that we were laughing at? About learning, or...
The one about the language in the brain.
Yeah, the language in the brain. No. And how they said the whole brain... I know, that was fun.
That was different.
Sorry.
There was an article in The Age this morning about they'd been mapping where different words map into the different parts of the brain. The funniest bit, though, was they had this little cartoon, and it had the brain, and it had, you know, kids, family, love, nature, da-da-da, and the whole middle of the brain it had internet cat videos. But anyway, no, they were saying that the big surprise that they found was that, you know, because language was always seen to be in Broca's.
Yeah, or the small.
And this is showing that language is everywhere. And the big surprise was that you're using all parts of the brain when you're speaking. Surprise, surprise.
Surprise, surprise. And, you know, that's yeah. But that is the thing, you know, when we know something well, we know it in our feelings, in our senses, in our thinking, and in our action. It has to be a whole brain activity. You know, and one of the things Feldenkrais would often say is that you learn by, you know, one of the big things is the nervous system's language. And, you know, this is going back in time, I agree, you know, when he was in the 80s, but I really don't think this has changed that much, is inhibition, which you probably all know, that nerves sending messages you can either inhibit to get across to the next nerve, which is a huge part of learning, which, as I said the other day, it's that part where I'm learning to ride a bike and everything's coming on initially, and as I refine the skill, all I'm really doing is inhibiting all the things that I don't need to do. But in that, it becomes a whole brain activity, because then I can talk while I'm riding my bike and I can think while I'm riding my bike, and it's not related to just one thing. Inhibition, facilitation, where you're helping the nerve one, and the other one's induction. Huge. Induction is the thing that spreads that to more areas. We learn something and then it becomes more and more part of who we are.
The more connections you have, the better it gets.
Absolutely. And, you know, induction is habit as well. So induction's habit, that it's just, everything's there. And that's why we're also trying to unpick our habits here, really unpick what it is that we're doing. How do we come in? Because we don't think about it anymore. It's something that we do. But all these new feelings, just as, you know, Fiona said, I was moving my feet and something was happening here. That she knows it in sitting. Does she know it in lying? Does she know it in standing? Does she know it when she's on her belly? Does she know it when she's running? Does she know it when she's doing the dishes? Does she know it when she's driving the car? So how does this just become part of who you are? And that's the transfer. And that's a little bit, if we go back to yesterday where we were talking about the self-direction a little bit, that's one part of it. I'm transferring this sensory motor feeling I have into more and more domains. And, you know, I would maybe predict that that feeling was a really nice sensation. So we're transferring pleasure. We're transferring an aesthetic appreciation of this is more than me, that I would like to be more of the time.
Can you say generalise?
Generalise would be another word you could use for it. Absolutely, Anastasia. But we have to know it in every domain. So Feldenkrais would always say, you don't know, it's not you until you can do it in every orientation and every way, because then it's in there. Up until then, we're still going through this process. And that's, again, where the self-direction comes in, because many of us, we're all starting at different levels when we come to the training. So for many of us, it's like, you know, I was thinking about Bruce the other day. I'm saying, Bruce, slow down. Bruce takes feedback really well. You do, it's great. I mean that. Bruce is doing at the moment what he feels is aesthetically pleasing. He's not deliberately, do you know what I mean, going up. But it's that ability to know that our habits are there, and how do we keep coming back that little bit more to really feel with our self-direction. Well, I don't think I'm efforting, but if I go slower, maybe there's something in there that I haven't discovered yet. Maybe there's something I can do a little bit differently. And that's the process of being a Feldenkrais person. And not just practitioners, this is what we're trying to bring to our clients. This ability of self-direction. And it's different with all of our clients. Go on, sorry.
I just wanted to say I was absolutely astounded the other day when we were doing all this behind the back, and it felt so stiff and uncomfortable. And I thought, I want to be so sore tomorrow. But because we were encouraged to do it so slowly and be really, really careful, I didn't feel a thing. And it's just like, wow. Did anyone feel the same way? Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, it's really.
Did you want to say something?
But I think it's fantastic. It's that ability to self-direct ourselves.
But that's Feldy too, isn't it?
That is what Feldenkrais method is. That is what it is.
What I heard the other Leonie say was what I heard you say, which is when you get new clients, you get them on the table and they've got to be in that soft space so that they're receptive, so they learn the rules of the game. So they're actually learning the first little moves in developing awareness so that they can start to do that. Because that's what I find I teach a class of ESL learners who are freaked out and traumatized and think you'd learn this way and it means that. And the first thing you have to do is just like level the room, get people just quiet and present.
Calm the
nervous system. Show them how to palm the eyes, which is amazing. And then they're receptive in all their different places. But that was what I heard you say, and I thought that was really important. Just take the system down and it'll start to...
Absolutely.
It works. You don't have to push the damn thing.
And it's really interesting, if you think back, I can think of teachers. Who are the teachers that I had incredible respect for in the past? They all did it in a different way, but they all had that ability to make you feel in the classroom, even though some of them were really strict, there was no way you were going to muck up, and there were others who you felt contained in a way by them, that your system could settle. It didn't have to be on high alert. And this goes back a little to what we were saying, about this with the head. And there's something profound that happens in someone's organisation, and I'm going to go a little bit diverse here because this was Guy Claxton, whose books I think are just wonderful. And it was him that it wasn't Feldenkrais, I heard him say that our habits of perception are the hardest to change. Our habits of perception. What we've constructed in our brains. And so the filters that we're seeing the world through all the time. And, that's as simple, as a habit of perception is, do I always lead with one ear to listen to people? It's really fascinating, a couple of psychologists I've worked with, and, they had all this pain, but constantly they'd come forward with one ear to listen to their clients. So they were constantly in this, So what do? They're not going to change that habit quickly. But maybe if they just shift their chair a fraction so that they've got the person in a different place to them. And that's what you're really doing. When do I want the environment to adapt to me, which was what I did in China? Or when do I need to know that I can adapt to the environment? Really, they're basic skills in life, When are the times where I'm sitting there going, no, it can't be this way? And why do I want that in my life? Because that's the only way I can feel secure, usually. So maybe if I can't change that, maybe if I just sat on a ball and let myself move around a little bit rather than being so fixated in one place. My other a really nice one is, you know, and I do this a lot with clients, you know, if someone comes in and I'll say they're really backed against the wall, with me with my procrastination, that's where I go. That's where I go. I go backwards. There is no point at that point in me trying to move forward. Because I can't go there. Every single part of me is inhibiting me going forward. But maybe if I went back and to the right, I could recover. So again, not fighting my system. No? No? Really finding this ability to, can I find another way? And that's what we're doing when we're working in FI. And to do that in FI, we have to be neutral. We have to not already be biased in our directionality. We still have to have the possibility of moving in all the directions. But we'll explore that a little bit later. I think it's time for an ATM. Okay, so if you need a quick break,